Our Father in heaven, we come to you this evening and we just pray for your Spirit to come and for your will to be done. Father, I pray that tonight that you will help us to be able to rest in your presence and rest in your goodness, to be able to have new life breathed into our lungs. I pray, Jesus, that you will give us a passion for your church, that you will give us a passion for the broken, for the lost, and that, Jesus, we here in Edwardsville, Illinois, in the Metro East area will be a group of people who do everything we can to point people to you. So, Jesus, thank you so very much. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Well, thank you all so very, very much for joining us this evening. To everybody here in person and to everybody watching online, we really do appreciate you taking a part of your Sunday evening to spend some time with us tonight. We're going to do everything we can to keep this as close to an hour as possible. And obviously, that's an hour in preacher speak, so you never really know what's going to happen. But we've already received some questions this evening that we're going to kind of address as we go on, go through the evening. But if at some point you have a question that you would like us to address, you can text your questions this evening to the number 618-401-1153. And we will reserve some time at the end of the service to the end of the evening to go through and answer some of your questions. So, but as we get started tonight, I believe it's always so important that we begin by being reminded about why we do what we do. And so what we want to start with is simply just the mission statement of LeClaire Christian Church, and it is, we are striving to be courageous followers of Jesus who love God, love others, and prove it daily. And the things that we want to be able to do, the things that we value as a church are these, and are some of the things that we value as a church are these. We value a transforming relationship with Jesus. This is something that cannot be done through behavior modification, but can only be done through the work of the Holy Spirit in a person's life. We value sharing the hope of Jesus. We believe that Jesus is the hope of the world, that it is our job as followers of Jesus to share that hope with a lost and a broken world around us. We value authentic community. And man, 2020 has done a whole lot to try and break that one down. But we still value this, and we still believe that this is so incredibly true. In fact, I believe that 2020 has shown us just how true this really is. Anytime that I talk about community, I always try to throw this quote in there at some point. There will come a time in your life when unforeseen circumstances will arise, and you will need a Jesus-minded community to have your back. And if that community does not already exist, you will likely resist it when that time comes. Welcome to the year 2020. I believe that that's what this year has done, is it's just reinforced our need for authentic community. We value using what it is that God has entrusted to us. And that for us to be the church that God is calling us to be, that we all must use the gifts that God has given us. That's the only way that the church can be the church, is if each and every one of us play our part, and then we value being welcoming to all. Currently, I am just a couple of weeks from finishing out my 4th year here at LeClaire and my 18th year of full-time ministry. And I can unequivocally say that 2020 has been by far been the toughest year I've ever had in ministry. It's one of the main reasons why I asked Evan to sing the song Cornerstone tonight. It's because whenever everything is stripped away, whenever all that we've been trying to build comes crashing down, we still have our foundation in Jesus Christ. He's still our cornerstone. He's still what we go back to build upon. And so tonight I want it to be a celebration because God is still God. God has not been caught off guard by a single thing that has taken place this year. Our foundation is still our foundation. And the reason that a foundation is so important in a believer's life is because we will only be able to stand the strong storms in life depending on how strong our foundation is. However, man, I miss seeing so many people. I miss weekly knowing that I'm going to get hugs and I'm going to be able to encourage and be encouraged by so many who are not here. And I hope that you understand that I am not saying any of that to try and cast any guilt on anybody who has decided not to come to in-person services. I get it. I went through the COVID battle and I get it. But I miss you. I miss your smiles. I miss the little conversations that we're able to have that deepen relationships. I am so thankful that you are doing what you believe is best for your family. And I am so thankful that some of you have decided to come back and join us in person. I am so thankful for the technology that allows us to have online services so we can still be connected somewhat even whenever we are apart. You know, one of the most surreal things about preparing for this evening has been looking back to last year's Vision Night. And I'll get into this a little bit more as we go throughout the evening. But last year, there were 3 words that I just couldn't get out of my mind whenever it came to Vision Night. And as I was preparing for this and looking back at last year's Vision Night, I read these 3 words, and I was like, oh my word, those are more appropriate right now than they even were last year. And so if you have a really, really good memory, maybe you'll remember some of these words. But I'm not holding anybody to that, so I'll remind you of what they were. The first word was unity. This is at the very center of the gospel. This is at the very center of Jesus' message to his followers, his current followers in the first century, and it's at the very center of his message to future followers. This idea of unity is at the very center of Paul's message to the church. And 2020 has challenged this a lot. 2020 has done everything it can to wreck this and to sow disunity where unity once stood strong. Whether it was through civil unrest or how to respond to a pandemic or a political election season, just to name a few. And I've said this a few times over the course of the last several months, but one of my favorite things about our church is just how diverse our church is whenever it comes to different ways of thinking. But with varying ways of thinking will automatically always come with tension. They kind of go hand in hand. And I believe that we're living in a day and age to where that's just becoming more and more true. But regardless of all that, unity is vital. Jesus made this crystal clear the night that he was betrayed whenever he prayed for believers and future believers. And regardless of what's taking place in the world around us or where you may fall on any number of issues, we must unite, listen, around the message and the hope and the life of Jesus Christ. That is the uniting factor that we must rally around. That there is hope and there is life found in the resurrection of Jesus. Regardless of anything else, that's where we have to find common ground. The second word that we had last year was the word partnership. That for us to be the church that we are called to be, we all must play our part. We all must use the gifts that God has given us to further his work in his kingdom all around us. And again, 2020 has challenged this as well. To a very large extent, we've all kind of been put on islands. Our community has largely been confined just to our households. Larger community has been discouraged. Working together has been discouraged. And again, I don't want any of this to come off as I'm trying to throw darts or I'm trying to say that this is all ridiculous. I completely get it. However, for us to be the church that God has called us to be, we must figure out a way to work together in spite of a pandemic. And I'm so happy to say that this is happening on a variety of levels and in a variety of ways, many of which were not happening pre-pandemic, that we really hope to continue post-pandemic and as we move forward. Then the third word that we had last year was outreach. And again, 2020 has presented challenges in regards to this as well. However, I am so thankful for the work that's been taking place to help us continue to reach out to our community, even in times of uncertainty. In many ways, we've been forced to look inwards, but we have to fight that temptation and continue to keep our eyes on the mission field that God has set before us. And one of the number one reasons why this is so important, maybe some of you remember this slide from last year as well, is because there are 135,000 people at least in Madison County that we know are living without the hope of Jesus Christ. So, we have unity, uniting around the message and the hope of Jesus that is found in his resurrection. We have partnership, everybody doing what everybody can do to make the church what it is that God desires for it to be. And outreach, figuring out ways to look beyond ourselves and look to and how we can take the message of hope to Jesus, of Jesus to our community. But right now, I'm going to turn the evening over for a few minutes to a few of our staff members and another member of our leadership to kind of just fill you in on what's going on in different ministries around the church. So very first, I am going to bring up and would like to introduce to you all Miss Kelsey Cook.
Hey guys, it's good to see your faces. I maybe don't know everybody's face. I started my job here as the children's minister started like the week before everything shut down. So I was like, oh, okay, get to learn a new job and in a new place and learn how to reach our kids in the middle of a pandemic. So that's kind of hard to do. But I'm glad to be with you here tonight and glad to see some faces again. It's good to see everybody and to be with you. So I just wanted to kind of start and talk about just the purpose of our kids ministry here at LeClaire. And our purpose is to teach children about being a follower of Christ in a safe, fun, and loving environment. We want them to be safe. We want them to have fun. Most of all, we want them to learn about Jesus and how to follow him. And part of our purpose is to make sure that we also develop a partnership with parents. It's really important to us that we remember that it is not our job solely to lead kids to Jesus. We want to come alongside parents and help them to do that as well. And so part of doing that is we're really intentional about the curriculum that we choose when we teach our kids. And the curriculum that we use partners the church and the parents. It's called Orange, a partnership of yellow and red. We come together to bring the message of Jesus to our kids. And that curriculum allows us to help parents engage with their kids with what they're learning in church every Sunday. So it's not like they come, drop off, and then they don't talk about it the rest of the week. We're able to give them material so that they can continue having the conversations throughout the week as they go home. And if you're interested, Heather just finished putting together a phase wall down in the preschool hallway there as you head down toward the activity center. And on that wall, it shows you a timeline, just kind of the development of faith in children. And it kind of talks about how parents and the church can partner with each other to kind of help develop faith in their children. It's really, really cool. She did a really good job on that in the last couple months, so you should check that out. Like I said, doing kids ministry during COVID is difficult. Kids aren't really able to jump in their car and go make decisions and drive wherever they want to go, or they can't necessarily hop on the internet and log on and get all they need for their own spiritual development. And so we, as a family ministry team, have kind of had to innovate a little bit to try and figure out, okay, well, what's the best way that we're going to be able to reach babies through 5th grade? It's a little bit different. And so early in the pandemic, our curriculum was able to shift online, which was a huge blessing for us. The curriculum that we used is really good quality. The videos that they put out really are engaging to parents and kids and really are helpful. And so we were able to put those online. That was a really big blessing. And we're able to continue keeping those online. We know that not everybody is ready to come back yet. And so those are still available every week online for parents to watch with their kids and to continue to interact with their children with. So that was a really big win. Early on in the pandemic, we were sending packets home through the mail to our kids every week. Stuff that would go along with what they were learning each week, but also just fun things to let them know that we were thinking about them and praying for them and just wanting to let them know that they weren't forgotten during these days. We were able to move our seasonal events that we have throughout the year, VBS. We just did our Jingle Jam online, and we were able to add an Easter Jam, which was an Easter kind of family program. We were able to do all of that virtually this year, which again, it's not the same, but it was a really big blessing to be able to offer that to families. We were able to send a box home that had stuff in those boxes that they could do as a family to kind of promote and continue that spiritual development together. Aside from the programmatic stuff, we were able to do some space improvements back there in the activity center. We were able to get a stage set that looks really great, adds to kind of a cohesive look up there on stage. And we're able to get some draping that we can put up and take down that kind of shrinks the space. It's a really big space back there for little kids, and so it kind of shrinks that space and allows for a more age-appropriate learning environment for them, so they're not kind of distracted by everything that's going on around them. So those are some really cool things that we've been able to do this year, even though it was maybe a less than ideal year than we were hoping for. As we move forward into 2021, we're really excited that we've been able to meet back with kids ministry for the past couple months. We started at kids ministry at the beginning of October, and each week we've just grown every week. We've had more and more kids come, and we've loved seeing them, listening to them sing, and they ask so many questions, and it's good to see them, and for me to get to know them. I've appreciated that. Our goal in the new year is to get back to doing 2 services of kids ministry. We really want to do that with both services. In order for us to do that, we really need more help. Right now, we are not running at full capacity even. We have minimal classes, combined classes, and it's, we're making it work, but we really want to be at full capacity and then to move to 2 services. And I, again, know that, I just reiterate what Andy said, I know that not everybody's ready to come back, and I understand that. But if you are ready, just know that we are ready for you. We would love to see you again. We miss you, but we also need you. We believe that kids need adults in their life who love them and who love Jesus and who want to talk with them about God things. And so we are ready for you when you're ready to come back and be with us. And if you've never volunteered in children's ministry before, and if you think, never thought about that, maybe that could be fun, please come and talk to Heather or I. We would love to have that conversation with you. And we have opportunities in elementary and in early childhood. So if you think, 4th and 5th graders are scary, you can always rock babies. And if 2-year-olds are just not your thing, we have some kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade kids that will talk to you. They will talk to you and just talk. They would love to have you listen to them. So, and then, continuing forward into 2021, we want to continue that partnership that we are trying to develop with families. Families were kind of thrown into, okay, I'm in charge of this now solely. It's all on me. And so we want to kind of come up with some good ways that we can help you do that and help do that well. And our family ministry team, we've been talking about some ways, and we're excited about some of the things that are coming up. So we are excited about the new year, what that's going to bring, and all the opportunities that we're going to have to share Jesus with our kids. So we can't wait to partner with you as parents, with you as volunteers, to impact the lives of our littlest members here at LeClaire. So.
And next, we have our student minister, Trey Hardiman.
I was going to be a little upset if I didn't get the same applause as Kelsey. This year has been really hard on our middle school and high school students. I don't say that lightly, whether it's school, whether it's things being taken away. It's been very visible. You can see kind of sometimes their mood. You can see how they're being affected just by all the different things that are kind of taking place right now. So we've been just trying to do everything we can to just talk about the wins of this year rather than just always talking about the things that have been not so great. And so some of the key wins that we've had for our student ministry, when we started at the beginning of the pandemic, we were running right around 45 students. And right now, right before we ended the week before Thanksgiving, and we were running right around 55. And so the retention rate there was fantastic, which we were super surprised by. We grew, and we knew that there's quite a few families who weren't ready to come back too. So it was super encouraging to know that we grew a little bit in the season of the pandemic as well. Another big win for us is we had 4 baptisms over the last 7 months. And so 2 high school, 2 middle school. That's super uplifting to know that Jesus is really moving in this season, and that even in the midst of things being not what we'd want, God's still moving. That's been awesome. Another thing, we hosted our very own CIY event here at the church, and we don't want to do that every year. We don't want to have CIY here. We'd rather travel and go somewhere else and have some fun that way. But it was super cool to recognize that we can host our own event. And our kids, at the end of that event, they were like, hey, can we host our own some type of church event? And so we're trying to figure out what that would look like in the future. And then lastly, our students persevered. I've had more moments over the last few months where I have probably just been super upset because I feel like my students, maybe they're not getting enough. Maybe, and I know the teachers are working hard, but I have students who are coming in, they're like, I just can't do this. I'm struggling. This is hard. Everything is going on. And so there's been so many moments where I've felt just upset, but they have been the ones who have persevered and been strong and recognized that this isn't the end, that we are going to keep moving forward. And so that's been super uplifting for me, and I hope for all of you as well. Our purpose and our vision is more of the same. We want to create a student ministry that allows our students to recognize that God has created them for a bigger purpose in their life, that Jesus is calling them to something larger than just themselves. This whole idea that kingdom work is a lifestyle, something that we want to drive deep into their hearts, that if you love Jesus, it'll create a posture of not only thankfulness, but it'll create a posture of allowing you to recognize, okay, if I love Jesus, he's calling me to serve my community around him. And our mission statement goes along with our churches, right, of love God, love others, and prove it daily. But we say moved, proved, and used. This idea of our students, they want to move closer to a relationship with God. What does that look like? Well, it's difficult, right? They are in a different season of life. They're trying to figure out who they are. And so every day they're doing everything we can. We're doing everything we can to allow them and show them ways to move closer to who Jesus is. Proved? Well, I mean, we live in a day and age of social media where everything is trying to get their attention. And so we want them to know that their identity lies with God, not what the world says about them, not what people say about them on social media, not what anybody other than what Jesus says about them, that you are worth more than in king's ransom, that we and their identity is found in God himself. And then lastly, we want to be used by God. And its whole idea, once again, kingdom work is a lifestyle. So if kingdom work is a lifestyle, that means that everything we do, we're doing for the glory of God. And so moved, proved, and used. In the vision, we're trying to just create a culture where not only do we just say that we love Jesus, but we prove it in how we love others as well. And this whole year for us we're super excited because our word of the semester is serve. Our family ministry team has been trying to figure out ways in which we can engage our community. I think for us, we're super looking forward to the opportunities that are before us to be able to serve our community, to be able to serve the Metro East, and give our students opportunities to say, you know what, I love Jesus, and if I truthfully love him, how can I love the world around me? And if I'm loving the world around me, I should be able to see tangible things that I'm doing in my everyday life. And so I don't have a video for you today, but one of the things that we are going to be doing is we're going to be working with CIY Engage, and there's these CIY Engage experiences that we're looking forward to, and it's all about this kingdom work being a lifestyle that every single day you have an opportunity, whether it's you're driving your car and you see someone who needs help mowing their lawn and you go and do that, whether you see an elderly woman trying to carry her groceries at Walmart and you go and you help her. And obviously this looks different in the season of the pandemic, but there's always ways for you to serve your neighbor. And so if we can get our students on board with that, I think our church is in a better place. How can you partner with us? Well, let me tell you. So I think this year more than others, offer encouragement to your middle school and high school students. When you see them, say hello, say thank you, say you got this, we're going to figure this out together. But any way you can encourage students will go a long way. Right? In our student ministry, we say that the first 15 seconds that you walk in through those doors are going to decide whether a kid's going to come back or not. And oftentimes, we maybe take that for granted. But anytime you see one of our students, if you could just be a part of the change that's going on in their hearts and just say hello and make them feel important, that would mean a lot to me, and I know it would mean a lot to them. Secondly, if you could just pray for them. Blanket these students with prayer. This season has been hard on all of us, and particular them trying to learn in 4 different ways, trying to figure out what's next for them, okay? I'm getting ready to go to college, and I don't even know what to do in my senior year of high school, let alone my freshman year of college. I'm going away from home, and it's different and all these different things. So if you could just blanket them with prayer, that would be fantastic. Number 3, this is the big one, volunteer with us. We are creating another volunteer kind of role. So right now we just technically have life group leaders. And so basically what that looks like is you kind of and another volunteer, you run a small group with them. And that's a lot of engagement. That's ways in which you are directly impacting these students' lives and you're doing life with them. And there's kind of some things that we're trying to push next semester to allow these students to just do life with their volunteers as well. But we're trying to create another role, which just, you're like, I want to hang out with students. I want to be able to impact lives in maybe a smaller way. And so whether that's offering food or just hanging out, playing 9-score with the kids, they get a kick out of that. And so just showing up, just another adult who's willing to show up for these students. And as many adults as we can get to do that, I think we will just see the world change in front of our eyes. And then the last thing is we talked about wanting to serve. If you just have ways in which our students, we as a family, can just serve our community, we'd love to do that. We want to be the hands and feet of Jesus, and so however we can do that, whether that's ideas like Be the Church Day or whether that's working with the food pantry, we want to be the hands and feet of Jesus, and our students are super excited to go do that in the Metro East. And so that's all I have, and we're really looking forward to 2021.
Thanks, man. And now we're going to have our discipleship minister, Daniel Cook.
All right, it's good to see you guys this evening. I get to be in the middle, which is the best. It's like the cream of the Oreo, right? So anyway, I am excited to share with you. I think I echo a lot of what has been said so far. Thank you. I did have a couple slides. So in fact, in your packet, wrong way. I'm going to go a little out of order, so we're going to start with this one here. I think I echo what everyone has said so far. You know, a verse that comes to mind for this year comes from Proverbs 19:21. It says, "Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." And I can't tell you how many times we've had in our minds what we hope to see this year, but we've had to kind of take a step back and just look and see where God has been working. And I hope that today, and some of the things that I get to share with you, you can see in some of these stats or numbers or information, you can see where God is continuing to work, even though it might look very different than what we had anticipated. But for me, doing discipleship and working with adults here at LeClaire, there are 2 main areas that I get to oversee, and one of those is assimilation. And that's a fancy word for basically when somebody comes into our doors for the very first time, helping them connect in ways that is going to help them grow spiritually and help them connect with other people here and forming important relationships to grow and just to feel needed and to feel known. And there are a lot of different areas in assimilation that we've been working on this year. One of those is our First Impressions team. Many of you guys see them as you walk through our doors every Sunday. They're the ones, kind of our first line of defense to help people know where to go, to make them feel welcome, and to point them in the right direction, and to help them know what a good next step is. So we've got our First Impressions team. And this year, going into March, when we had planned to start 3 services, we were able to add an additional 25 volunteers to our team, which was incredible. We were ready to go, and hours before that all changed. But this is something that we're continuing to rebuild this year. I think our team was upwards of about 70, 75 people, and now we've had about 8 to 10 that have been able to return. And so if that is something that you see yourself as being able to help with, we'd love for you to join our team. And if you're on that team and whenever you're ready to be back, just give me a call. We'd love to plug you in and get rebuilding there. But we made some additions to that team this past year. We also made just some improvements in how we track our guests and how we follow up with them. We want to make sure that when someone comes through our doors, they know what a very clear next step is for them. And so if someone's new, we send them now an email every week. We call them on the phone for our very first time guests. And then when they come a second time, we send them another email with some information, ultimately leading them to our Discover LeClaire class, which is what we encourage everyone to be a part of as kind of a first step to get connected. Because it's in this class that we connect them into more consistent things like life groups and getting involved in maybe a serving team. And so this year we kind of put a lot of those steps in place to help that process through. So this year for our Discover LeClaire class, just some information for you. We had 42 adults attend. 36 of those were pre-COVID. So we had a pretty big hit in that class after the fact. We tried to kind of do an online version, which was what we're still doing now. We've had a few people come, but I'm hopeful as time goes on, we'll see more people return and join us there. But of those 42, we had 22 that decided they wanted to make LeClaire their home church, and they placed their membership, became an active partner. And that might seem a lower number, but many people who attend that class, this is just their second or third week, and it's pretty quick to make a decision like that. Most people, like I said, I think there's an additional 14 that are still involved, have gotten connected in other ways. 20 of those signed up for a life group, 12 signed up to be on a ministry team, and we had 7 that expressed a desire to get baptized. In that class, we talk about serving, we talk about life groups, but we also talk about what it looks like to begin following Jesus. And we had 2 baptisms that has happened since because of that, and we have some others that are waiting, that we had planned, and are kind of waiting for family to be here where people can be together for that. So those have been some good things to see, but we're looking forward to continuing to build upon that moving forward. I also just want to share something that to me was very striking this year. So far, as of November 29th, which was the last Sunday in November, we had 178 first-time guests. In a year where we have been asked to stay home and not get out, this is a huge number of people. And 103 of those came after we started back in person, post our closing down for a little while. And this is just a reminder to me that there is still an incredible need for community for individuals. And we have had so many people come through our doors, people, maybe the college student who doesn't get to attend class, they're here for their very first year, and they have no community. And as a church, we can provide that for them. And so it's been so exciting to see so many new faces. Many of them have been young college students that have come in and have plugged in right away. And I know we've said this before, and I just echo again. For those of you who are still tuning in online, and that's completely fine, Again, this is not to guilt anybody, but just to show you that when you're ready to come back, we have a need. And we have people here that are longing to find community and meet others. And so we're excited to see that. We're excited to see God working in that way. This is compared to last year. We had 109 recorded guests, and that number includes children. The 178 is just adults. And so I know this has been a crazy year, but numbers like that just help assure me that God is really continuing to work here at LeClaire, and that when we are past this pandemic, there is still so much good work to be done, so many people in our community to be reached, and I'm so grateful to see those things. So as far as assimilation goes, just want to encourage you, if you are somebody who likes to welcome people, maybe are interested in getting involved in our First Impressions team, or maybe it's just kind of being there in this time where not all of our volunteers are able to return, I'd love for you to join our team, and we're slowly rebuilding that, and so that's something that can help us out tremendously with our assimilation and helping guests connect here. The next area that I oversee is our life groups. And as you can imagine, a pandemic that affects community directly affects our main source of authentic community here at LeClaire, which is our life groups. Authentic community is one of our core values that Andy stated earlier, and this has had a huge impact on our ability for our groups to meet. A year ago at this Vision Night, as I was getting started in this role here and just looking at where we wanted to go with our life group ministry, and kind of looking at where we began, we had about 140 people involved in a life group. That was about 35% of our congregation. And so one of our goals that we're on track for is to not just be a church with life groups, but to end up being a church of life groups. That it becomes more the norm that somebody who is involved here, who comes here, is involved in one of our life groups. And so we've done whatever we can this year to continue to move toward that goal, and we hope to continue to do so once the pandemic is finished. But just to kind of share some stats, and also just a reminder of our purpose and vision with those groups, the goal of our groups is to create a place for faith to grow through community, study, and service. And it focuses on those three things: creating authentic community, engaging in the study of God's Word, and serving one another in the community. We have a vision here that ultimately everyone who's here is in a group. That, right now we have these ministry teams that help serve in various capacities, and I'll talk about those in just a moment, but like our hospital team that goes and visits people in the hospital, or our bereavement team that helps somebody who might have lost a loved one. I would love one day to get to a point where we don't even need those teams anymore, because our life groups are fulfilling that purpose. And that when something happens with someone in your group, those in your group come together and help fulfill that. And so that's ultimately where we want to go as a church. But looking back at this past year, we were able to offer two distinct life group sign-up pushes, one at the beginning of the year in January, and one before the fall in August and September. We had 33 new sign-ups in January. That was, again, pre-COVID, so that was great. We had 16 in the fall, which more than one was plenty for me. I thought that was pretty good. But we, even at a time where it's been difficult to meet together, were able to increase our participation by 28%. We had 143 adults in a life group in January, and by the end of our sign-ups in the fall, we had 183. And so I'm grateful to God that we've continued to see us move toward that goal, but we still have some work to do. We also began this year with 12 life groups. By the time we concluded our fall signups, we were offering 16. Some of those are not able to meet in person and regularly, but they still exist in some capacity. Also, our leaders have been incredibly flexible in this season and have been very creative, and I'm so thankful and grateful for each one of them, because this has been such a challenging year for them. And some have gone to Zoom, some have just had meetings over the phone, some have been meeting outside, But they're doing whatever they possibly can to keep that community going, and I'm grateful for that. Also, something new that came about because of COVID, we started a LeClaire all-church Bible study that we've been doing on Facebook. Because we knew that we had several people not involved in a group, we wanted to have something outside of the Sunday morning service to get people studying the Word of God and just being encouraged. And so that was something new that came about. And if you haven't joined us, we'd love for you to do so. We went through the book of James, we went through the book of 1 Peter, and we plan to continue to do that in the new year as well. We're going to be starting Mark at the beginning of February and continuing to expand our platform. We're going to try to take our discussions into podcast form, not just videos on Facebook. And so we'd love for you to join us if you're looking for a way to stay engaged in God's Word. And many of our life groups have piggybacked off that as well, and it's been very, very good for them. So with our life group ministry and where we want to go, one of the biggest needs that we have is more leaders. And if that is something that you feel that God is potentially calling you to or preparing you for, I would love to sit down and have a conversation with you. It may not be that you have to be ready by next month. Maybe it's that we get to meet together and talk about what it looks like to lead a group. We have so many people here at this church, and regularly we hear from individuals that say, I've been coming for so long, but I just don't feel connected. And the reality is, if you're just coming here on a Sunday morning, you may not ever feel fully connected. But we need leaders who are able to lead groups to help people feel that they are known and feel that they are needed. And I would love nothing more than to continue to see that ministry grow so that we can be effective at raising disciples and just encouraging and helping people feel at home here at LeClaire. So if you would like to sign up for something like that, a life group leader, first impressions team, you heard from Kelsey and Trey that they have ministry needs as well. We have a sign-up form, a digital sign-up form that was included in the email that you received. And so I just ask that you would take time to fill that out and let us know if there's an area that you would like to serve in or just want more information about. In addition to that, you'll find on that list several of our servant ministry teams. We talked about these last year, and they're listed in your packet. But these are the teams that do a lot of behind-the-scenes work. It's kind of like groups that are ready to act when the need arises. Things like our hospital team that can go and visit people in the hospital, of course, not in this season, but when we can someday again. Or like our local outreach team that has worked to find ways to serve in our community and help those in need. And so take a look at all of those. If you're interested in getting involved in one of those and helping in that way, we can always add to that as well. But again, that link is in your email. And I will also, if you're watching with us online, I will post it in the chat of our online, our church online format, so you can sign up that way as well. Thank you, guys. And I'm going to turn things.
Yeah, I'll take it just for a second. Right now, we're getting ready to give Daniel a round of applause. Thanks, man. Right now, I'm going to introduce to you the chairman of our elders, Mike Vaughn, and he has the distinct pleasure of talking about money. So, we'll let this guy have some fun.
And I've also been given a time limit. So, you know what it means when a preacher looks at his watch, don't you? Nothing, yeah. Before I start talking about the budget, I wanted to talk about something Daniel mentioned this morning, that we've been receiving nominations for deacons and elders. And we have basically some people rotating off because they've completed their 3 years. And on the deacons, Chris Brown, Jeff Smith, Trevor Spohr, and Pete Voss have agreed to another 3-year term. So if affirmed, they will serve another 3 years, along with Derek Johnston, Jeremy Schofield, Randy Thurman, and Nate Tingley, and Matthew Wilson. Rotating off, and there's nothing wrong with rotating off. Sometimes you need a break. Earl McCam and Chris Smith will be rotating off. On the elders, the nominee that we have is Tom Head, and if elected, he'll serve for 3 years with Mark Fryer and myself. And the elders and our two pastors, Andy and Daniel, both serve on our leadership team. Rotating off this year would be John Worth, who's faithfully served for 2 terms. And as an elder, you can serve 2 back-to-back 3-year terms, and then you have to rotate off for 1 year. So he'll be doing that. And Emmanuel Enio, who has moved to Texas. I know most of you probably know that, and he and Grace. I went to a virtual retirement party for Emmanuel. He retired from SIU. He was an engineering professor there. And he said something that I thought was great. We were talking about his life, and a lot of people talked about Emmanuel and the mentoring he did and how he had changed their life. And he said, you know, his motto is that always the greatest use of a life is to spend it on something that will outlast it. And I thought that was really good, and I thought, man, what a good segue into the budget. Because our budget is something that's going to hopefully, for time and eternity, do kingdom work, right? So our budget review, I want to start off, Proverbs 21:31 says, horses are prepared for battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord. You know, that proverb tells us that it's our responsibility to prepare. It's our responsibility to develop a pathway to what we believe will be required to equip our teams here at the church and to accomplish our mission and vision in 2021. So it's more than numbers, and I know Andy loves numbers, but not really. So the budget this year was prepared by our finance team, and Richard Drew, our chairman, is participating virtually tonight, and he gave me the job of going over the budget. And the finance team was made up of Joyce Cornwell, Mitzi Head, and Nate Tingley, and we appreciate the hard work that they put into to develop this budget. It's a zero-based budget. If you look at your budget in your packet, there's 3 columns that we gave you for comparison: a 2020 budget, a projected 2020 actual, and a 2021 budget. But like I said, it's zero-based. We didn't use the previous budget to determine what it was we needed for the 2021 budget, but we actually developed it based on ministry teams and what they needed for their budget to be successful. So what we did for the first time this year, we took each ministry team and we gave them I guess, the ownership of their own budget, and they developed it, and they turned it in to the finance team, and they put it together, along with the leadership team as we went through it and developed our budget. So I want to refer you, first of all, to the 2020, projected 2020 column, and we've already received a couple questions, and I'll address those as we go, but if you look at the projected 2020 budget that you have before you, we look like right now that we're going to be about $22,000 on the projection of expenses in excess of our income. And if I can get to that page. But the November actual, that was based on a budget that was projected from October actual. And our November actual has come in even better, so we have cut that deficit to $10,000. So that's a good thing. But we started out the year needing $12,387 per week for our budget. And as we went into the year, things were looking great, and then COVID hit. And we found out in the leadership team, we sat around staring at each other thinking, what's going to happen? And we didn't know how long, and you know, we didn't know where this thing was going to take us. So as we looked at it, a lot of churches were signing up for the small business administration loans that were made available by our government. And we talked about that, and we decided, no, we're going to proceed without doing that, because basically it was a loan if you didn't use it for payroll and other expenses. We decided not to do that. And if you look at the projection and you look at the 2020 budget of the general fund, the top line, we are projected to come in at $646,000, which is right at a little over budget. I think that is a praise that you, as the church family, have been so faithful in supporting our ministry here. We've not had to struggle to meet any of our commitments, and we'll go through that in just a minute, but that is appreciated. As we go through, one of the things, and you saw the $22,000, and that was the question, why did we spend $70,000 on special projects when we had a $50,000 budget? Well, the reason we did, at the time in May, we didn't know how long the church was going to be down. Our bathrooms had needed some updating, and we decided at that point in time that with a prolonged church, I don't want to say shut down, what would I say?
The building being closed.
The building being closed, okay. Yeah, for that prolonged period of time, we seized that opportunity and knowingly went into the bathroom project. And if you've been in the bathrooms, and I hope you have, they are totally remodeled. They look good, don't they? Yeah, they look great. And so we took the time to do that. It took a lot of time to do it, and so that was one of the reasons, and we ended up with that. And then the other thing that we needed to do was, as we got into the new way of doing ministry through online, we needed to go to where we had the ability to do live streaming. And as we recognized that, we knew before we could come back and be functioning as without our pastors having to preach 3-4 times a week to tape an online service and then do a in-person service, we needed on live streaming. And also we were developing a significant online community. We've developed a whole new group of people that we're reaching out to. And so we went to this a project I guess what you would call it, we didn't have online live streaming, right? So we had to start from scratch. So the two of those projects were about $50,000. So if you would take that and look at our deficit, you would see that we were really about $30,000 over if it weren't for those two projects. And one of the things we were able to, because of your faithful giving, we were able to meet was our missions budget of $64,000. We've been able to do that, so that's an important thing that we were able to do. Now I want to hit real quick.
You're good.
Okay. Real quick on the 2021 expenses, because we build our budget from the expenses, and then we look at it and say, well, now, based on what we know about giving and our giving patterns, are we going to have giving good enough to support that budget? So if we look at I just want to hit on a couple things. Building and grounds, we're going to follow down through. So it's the column on your right, the 2021 budget. And if you look at the ministry headings there, building and grounds. One of the things that we wanted to do this year was have a maintenance escrow for those maintenance items that pop up, like an air conditioner that goes out, or like right now we have a roof repair that we've got to do that's about $8,100 that we're going to incur here in December. But we wanted to have that, and we couldn't work it into this budget, but we left that line there. And if our giving exceeds that of the budget, we're going to look at putting some money in the maintenance escrow. Also, special projects this year, if you drop down to the special projects lines there in building and grounds, you see $30,000, and that includes an extension to this stage to better be able to have more room up here and to increase the effectiveness of our ministry. Also, we have in the special projects, we have a mission, not a mission, what do we call it? Welcome center. Yeah, a welcome center that we're going to have designed and out front. And then there's a couple other things, and it's $30,000. And we've committed to this year that the funds, we will not spend for these projects until the funding is there. And we've already got some money set aside in our funding right now for those special projects. Then we look at operations real quickly, and here's where One of the things we've done this year, you'll see computer and software leases. That was not on there as a part of our budget before, but we've entered into leases for our computers, for our pastors. Instead of buying and owning the computers, we're into a 3-year lease, correct? 3 years? And that includes software and the hardware. And also then, if you look down in operations, debt retirement, we've put in there $25,000, and our desire is that we would pay, that would be 5 principal payments extra this year. And we're asking people to give to that. And again, that is a net zero, because as the giving, if you look up at the income, the $25,000 there that matches the expense, we'll match that to whatever it is. And then look down to the mortgage payment, $84,250. Our mortgage is $7,020 a month, and we have about 33 months to go on that mortgage before we have a balloon payment. And the finance team is going to be looking at possible refinancing. But our debt right now, after the November payment, is $562,375. And then if we look at salaries, you'll see in operations, we've kind of changed the categories there to be more meaningful and to match up with how it is that we report income. And if you look at that, one of the things that's noted on there that wasn't there before, and we've put it in all 3 columns, is housing allowance. And that's a tax benefit that our pastors have to declare part of their salary as housing allowance. And we've categorized that that way. Each year we look at salaries, we look at what the general wage increase studies show us that we should be offering our staff, and we also review individual positions and look at inequities, and so we adjust that every year. Educational assistance, somebody asked about that. We put that in there this year. If you look at that, and we have $2,000 in there, and that is to assist our staff with continuing education, and that will apply for that, and we will assist them in that way. Pastor's expense, you look at it's basically restoring to last year with even a little less. Missions. I want to point out to missions, we've broken it down by international, domestic, and other. And if you look at this year, how we've broken it down, and we've increased that in the international side, and our missions team would be able to give you a detail of that, but they do such a good job. And one of the things that our missions team did this year, last year we said we were going to ask teams to develop their own mission and vision that supports ours. And they've developed an excellent working paper in how they do their activities. And they established their own ministry mission, and that was to lead others to receive the love and saving grace of Jesus Christ. And their vision was to partner with ministries that are teaching and equipping people to be courageous followers of Jesus who love God, love others, and prove it daily. And they're reaching out in countries all over the world and domestically here as well. In our worship ministry, we took about $7,500 that were to enhance our video production and with cameras, monitors, I think new screens. But we moved that over to special projects because we couldn't keep that in our operating budget. So that's part of the special projects as well. And then transportation ministry, you see that, it's basically reduced just because we're not really using the public transportation right now that we have available through our van. Local outreach, we look at that. We've got the budget back in there for Be the Church Day, which you'll be hearing more about. Bucks for Blessing, that's another ministry that's self-funded through the giving that we do every first Sunday of every month. And if you look at that, Dave Underwagner leads that ministry, and he does a really good job at providing detail for that and doing that ministry well. To date, for this year, through November, they've spent $3,800 for that. Our projection is, you see there for 2020 is $4,100, as it's been limited due to COVID. But so we look like that we're going to be right on track for that 2020 actual, and the budget now of $6,350. We just that's the best estimate that we have right now, and it just depends on what the school does. But that's providing meals for students with LeClaire Elementary. And then I just have you drop down to benevolence, which is way down at the last two lines would be benevolence expense, and we have some other ministry expenses there that are miscellaneous ministries, but benevolence, that matches the benevolence income that we have, and if that we have forecasted. But if you look at this year, we've had some real significant, and that's appreciated as well, benevolence giving. And then Christmas offerings, someone asked about that the 15,000 there, that is just a projection based on what we would do, and it will depend on the identified ministry. So that takes us through our expenses, and if I could have 1 minute.
1 minute.
Look at the income side of things. If you go to the income, so what we do, once we develop our expenses, we look and say, okay, on our per capita giving and our giving base, can we support this budget? And we determined that we could, and if you look, our income, it's basically a 5.3% increase over the prior year budget. And if you look at the total income of the $762,950, that's about a 4.3% over the 2020 budget. So we felt like that was attainable. Our 12,387 weekly need would go to 13,092 if you approve this budget. That would be an increase of 705 a week, or 34,000 for the year. Also, if you look there's a little amount of money there for interest income, and that was the agreement that we would set aside 3 months of operating expenses and put that in some type of interest-bearing account. Of course, you don't get much interest today, but those 3 months of operating expenses total $170,199, or somewhere near that. Our current general fund balance is and with designated funds right now is about $243,000. So of that, $170,000 will be set aside. So our total income increase over the 2020 budget is the same as the expenses, 4.3%. And one of the things I wanted to highlight, and I'll quit, Andy, is that I always like to look at where we are as a church and as a budget compared to where other churches are. And there's a category recommendation by the Evangelical Council for Financial Accountability. And we look at that, and it tells us that salaries and wages, you should be about 45%. We are 45%. It says facilities should be at 20, and we're at 25. And basically, it's because of our debt. It says ministry programs should be at 22. We're at 21. It says missions should be at 11, and we're at 10% of general fund. And a question was asked about that. And we're committed to giving 10% of our general fund giving to missions. And that supported the budget that they requested this year of $68,100. We had to trim it down a little bit, but it wasn't much. I think it was like $1,700. So overall, that missions giving is 8.93% of our total budget. So that gives you an idea that we're pretty much in line. And I think our budget is a good budget, and I believe it is a pathway to achieving what we need to as a church and making a difference in this area for Jesus.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Now I get to talk for just a few more minutes here. And the first thing that I want to say is that the local church, regardless of what we see in this world, the local church remains God's plan for his people. 2020 has not changed this. One of my favorite preachers, he's often said this, and I love it so much. He says, marry the message, but date the method. Marry the message, but date the method. And I think that's a major lesson that we've had to learn this year. Marry the message of the hope and the life that is found through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. But date the method in which we share that message. Pivot, experiment, but do whatever we have to do to get that message out. A little earlier this evening, I said that planning for tonight has just been surreal. Thinking back to this time last year, we were planning on ramping up to 3 services. We were closing out a year where we saw great growth, to where we had added a couple of incredible staff members, and we could not wait for 2020. And this is kind of what we have. I mean, if we talked about this a little bit last year, but if you look at kind of the growth rate that we've had over the last several years, in 2016, LeClaire's average attendance was 314 people. In 2017, it went up to 370 people, which was an 18% increase. In 2018, it went up to 407 people for an average attendance, which was a 10% increase. In 2019, it went up to 461 people, which was a 13% increase. And the first 10 weeks of 2020, our average attendance was 530 people, which was a 15% increase. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but the very first Sunday that we went to online only was the first Sunday that we planned on going to 3 services. And I can tell you, man, as a staff, we were sitting in my office every single week just so excited by seeing how everything was going to begin this year. Seeing that new people were showing up. I mean, Daniel gave you the numbers a little bit earlier of the number of guests that we had showing up, and it was just like one of the most exciting things any of us had ever been a part of. And it seems like it was a decade ago. But as time went on, I mean, we were having conversations about, we believed that with going to 3 services that we were literally just weeks, because in this average attendance of 530 in the first 10 weeks of this year, we had multiple Sundays between 570, 580 people. We were having conversations about, man, we're just literally weeks away from hitting 600 probably on a pretty consistent basis. Now that we're opening up the new space, and we are beginning to have conversations about what are we going to do whenever we get to the fall. And you always see that spike in attendance in the fall. What are we going to do? I mean, if we end up running 700 people and we end up packing out a 3rd service, what's the next step? Do we add a 4th service? What are we going to do? Those were the conversations that we were having. And it just goes to show how true this text is from James chapter 4. James says, now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes, and all such boasting is evil. If anyone knows the good they ought to do and does not do it, it is sin for them. And last year, as we had this Vision Night, I introduced a picture to you that was introduced to me just a couple of months before Vision Night last year. And we called it Broadening the Base. Maybe this rings a bell for some of you. And it's just the idea that whenever you see this triangle, a triangle can only go as high up as its base will support. And so our goal is to just continually broaden the base so that way we can continue to build on what it is that God is allowing us to do here. And last year we said that we wanted to do this through servant ministry teams. We talked about staffing and adding more services through involvement systems, as Daniel talked about, to help people get plugged in from new gifts and into being active partners. Investing in the next generation, from kids ministry to ministering to the nearly 13,000 college students that are literally 2 miles down the road. We talked about technology, and we talked about finances, and several of these areas where we wanted to broaden the base, we've been able to accomplish some of them this year. Some of them, once again, as you would imagine, 2020 has kind of put a little bit of a damper on, but most notably, one of the areas where we feel like we've really been able to broaden the base is just in terms of technology. I mean, it's pretty incredible to me that each and every Sunday we have people who are watching us from Oklahoma, from Missouri, from Indiana, from Florida. Like, we have people from many different parts of the country who are tuning in to LeClaire Christian Church each and every week. And the reason I say that this is a way that we can broaden the base is because literally nearly every single person that we that we could reach now has access to us because of what we've been able to do in terms of technology. This year, as I'm sure it is for you and your business and in your life, has been defined by wins and challenges. I love what Trey said a little bit earlier, and just we really want to focus on the wins, but we have had some challenges as well. We faced the challenge of staying connected with people. And this has broken my heart. The staff can tell you how many times that I've talked to them about this and just the difficulties that we faced in staying connected to people I never would have imagined. I never would have dreamed. And I don't know why. I guess it's just the thing that you don't know what you don't know. But I never would have dreamed how dependent I was, and possibly we were, on seeing each other each and every week. But man, that has shook me to my core. We face challenges in all areas of consistency, as Daniel said, whether it's from groups to communication. I'm sure that our administrative staff is so sick and tired of hearing me say, yeah, I know, I just can't give you a definite answer right now. I've literally said I can't give a definite answer more this year than any other time in my life put together. We've faced we face the challenges of an increasing cultural divide. But church, we've also had so many wins. As Trey was talking about with the baptisms we've had other baptisms throughout the year. We have people who are still waiting to get baptized once we're able to get their families here. I believe that the initial experiments or whatever that we had to do, the initial move to an online service was a great win for us. We went from a church that had no online platform to literally within 24 hours. Like, we decided that we were moving to online only on a Saturday afternoon, and we had to get together and record a service for Sunday morning. Evan was literally up till 5 o'clock in the morning that morning editing the service so that it would be ready for us. And that's but being able to do that was just a massive win. Evan has done such an incredible job. We even heard about it today from people. Yeah, give him a round of applause. We heard it from people today that the look on the camera just continues to get more bright and just looks better. And Evan is nearly solely responsible from people on our staff for the look that continues to get better with our online service. We've greatly increased our online presence. We've seen this grow even more over the last several weeks. This is something that we're really trying to figure out how to do in a COVID kind of world is how do you measure growth? We used to measure growth in numbers, but we're having to try and figure out a new way to measure growth. And maybe it's through giving units. Maybe it's through people who are plugged in and serving and people who are plugged into a life group. Maybe that's the new measurement of church growth instead of just base attendance. But we've had this increased online presence and more and more people who are tuning in. And it's not just through our services, but it's the weekly Bible studies that we're putting on. During Easter, we put out weekly video devos, and we've done different things throughout the year. I'm so thankful for the way that our ministry team, or our benevolence team has, the work that they have put in, especially here recently. Randy Thorman's here, and he kind of heads up that team, and just the things that they've been able to do. We've literally given away thousands of dollars to people in our community who needed help with groceries and needed help in different ways. We have bought shoes and different things for different family members. We have had a successful coat drive and a successful canned food drive, all to support the Glen Ed Food Pantry. Our kids have made cards for emergency workers. Just great things that our church has been able to do in terms of outreach. This week, we are doing something for the teachers at LeClaire Elementary this coming Thursday, and we're so excited about that. Our outdoor service, that was something that, honestly, Trey Hardiman was the brainchild behind the outdoor service. Whenever he brought it up in the first staff meeting, we all kind of just sat there and said, Trey, that's an awful idea. We hate it. But man, it ended up making it to where we could get more people together quicker than we would have been able to otherwise. And it turned out to be such a great thing that we were able to start meeting together again in July. We had no idea what to expect. We had people who were telling us, as soon as you say you can come back, you're going to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are ready to come back. And then we had some people who were like, I ain't coming back, And so we had no idea exactly what to expect, but it was just such a blessing to be able to get back together a little bit sooner than we otherwise would have been able to. We've continued to have a lot of guests coming throughout the year, whether it's the outdoor service or whenever we move to the activity center, and we still have guests showing up each and every week as we have moved back into the auditorium. We've seen this gradual uptick, or we were seeing this gradual uptick in weekly attendance before this latest wave of COVID hit. And let me say this, I am so thankful that there are so many who were coming and showing up each and every Sunday who have now decided that they are going to stay home because they believe that's what's best for their family. It means that we don't have to feel like we have to make decisions for you, that we can just continue to do what we feel like we need to do and trust that you're going to do what you feel like is best for your family. And we are so, so grateful for that. Another huge win for us has been the college-age students who have been coming. They are serving, they're involved in groups. In fact, I don't know if our kids' ministry would be able to operate at the level that they are if it was not for these college students. And we are so, so thankful for everybody who is showing up in person and everybody who is serving so we can at least offer kids' ministry at one service. But as I begin to close out, because we've already gone 21 minutes too long, and I know you guys are holding me to it, as we begin to close out, there are just two more words that I want to throw at you, and I hope that these can be words that we can identify with as we move forward from this evening. And the words are reconnect and reengage. And so for you, I want to try and make this as possible as I possibly can. For those of you who are not ready to return in person, we get it. But we want you to still take steps to reconnect and reengage. And here's what we would love you to do. We would love for you to create a new Sunday morning routine. I've heard it said, and it was true it's true whether you're meeting in person or whether you're attending virtually. But Sunday morning church attendance is a Saturday night decision. Sunday morning church attendance is a Saturday night decision. Create a new Sunday morning routine. Go to your kids and either let them sleep in and you get up and you get your cup of coffee and you enjoy the service. Try and enjoy it with us at 8:30 or 10 whenever we're all there together. If you're unable to do that, choose a time that you are going to sit down with your family and go through the service together. Go through the kids' ministry stuff that Kelsey and Heather are still providing. But whatever you do, just create a new Sunday morning routine. Make an intentional effort to be a part of Sunday morning services. Secondly, we would ask you to create a new small group routine. If you're uncomfortable with coming to the church, but maybe you're comfortable with some people who have already kind of been in your bubble, get those people together with you on a weekly basis and do church with them. Because the last thing that we need to do, the last thing we really can do, is give up on community during this season. The next thing that I want to encourage you to do is to keep your kids connected. Do not allow a pandemic to make church optional for your children. Do not allow a pandemic to make church optional for your children. Go through the children's ministry things that we have, that we're putting out. But we are sowing seeds like crazy right now. Make sure that your children know that being a part of a community is important. And then number 4, please continue to support your church. Please support us by faithfully giving if possible. Please support us by praying for the leadership of the church. And for those of you who are ready to return in person, can we please also take some steps to reconnect and reengage? Can we take the step of if you're ready to return, will you please plug into serving? We desperately, desperately, desperately need you. Our dream for many years now, and I mean, this is kind of just that reset that maybe we can begin to make this dream a little bit more of a reality, but our dream has always been, at least since I've been here, that we would have people who attend one service and they serve one service. I understand that that means that you are here another hour, but we need you. Attend one service and serve one service. We desperately want to get our kids' ministry operating during both services again. But to do that, we need people who would be willing to step up and serve. And I just want to throw out this challenge. There are many over the past few years who were serving in kids' ministry at one point, who have decided that, who have said, and rightfully so, I need a break. But with all due respect, can your break be over now? Can you please come back and help again? Another thing that we would like for you to do if you're ready to return in person is plug into a life group. Again, do not give up on community. Then 3, make an effort to be here. Each and every week that you can possibly be here, make an effort to be here. Daniel hit on this, but the reason that this is so important is because we still have guests who are showing up. And you have no idea the amount of encouragement that you can provide just by simply being here. And then finally, please continue to support your church. Please support us by faithfully giving if possible. And please support us by praying for each other and for the leadership of the church. The experts are saying, financial church experts, whatever in the world that means, people like Mike Vaughn, they are saying to expect a downtick in giving in 21. And so what I want to ask you to do, and I asked this last year as well, is please, if possible, commit to being a percentage giver, an intentional giver. Maybe it's 2%. Maybe it's 5%. Maybe it's giving a full tithe at 10%. But please be an intentional percentage giver. And we are so thankful for your generosity throughout this year. And we just ask that as we get tired of technology and we get tired of Zoom, please do not get tired of being generous. Because regardless of whether you are ready to return in person or not, we want to ask that you will please take that next step to reconnect and reengage. Because the church is still God's plan for his people. And whether you are here or not, you have a part to play in that. So find ways to serve, find ways to connect, find ways to engage, and if possible, find ways to give. Because in the end, and I promise you, I am almost done. My prayer is that we will be unified to our core, that we will be unified around the person and the purpose of Jesus Christ, that we will stomp out any disunity that is being sown among us, that we will partner together, we will serve together, we will minister together to love each other and to more effectively reach out to our community around us. I pray that we will recognize the need that lies before us, that there are 135,000 people in our midst, our neighbors, our co-workers, our family members, who are living without the hope of Jesus Christ. And may we never be okay with that. And may we do whatever we have to do to reach as many of them as possible. And may we slowly begin to turn the page and take the next step to reconnect and reengage to all that God is doing here at the Clare. In other words, may we do more than say we love God, but may we prove it in the way that we love others. So tonight we've been asking the people online and even many of you if anybody had a question to text in. And do we have any questions?
Yeah, there's a couple. Do you want like one specific one which maybe Trey could answer? One, do you want me to give you some that?
Yeah, try and as many of them that can be packaged together. Let's package like crazy.
For you, future plans for Be the Church Day
Mm-hmm.
was a question. So any plans in the works
Sure, yeah. Our local outreach team is working diligently on that. We had a meeting a few weeks ago with our servant ministry team leaders and the local outreach team. I mean, they've felt this as much as anybody. And in fact, one of the heads of the local outreach team has lost a family member to COVID, and so is extra rightfully so sensitive to everything that's taking place in our world. And so really what we are doing is we are just trying to figure out what Be the Church Day looks like in a COVID world. As we all know, the more people who get COVID, and as the vaccine comes out, hopefully we're able to reach this place of herd immunity and all those things that the experts always say that over my head. But hopefully by this fall, we'll be able to have something that at least resembles a regular Be the Church Day.
Yeah, another one here is just about COVID updates. You know, I think early on in this pandemic, we provided more updates, but there haven't been as many lately. Can you maybe speak to that, where other schools, businesses have provided updates?
Sure.
What about us?
Sure. Yeah, and the main reason why we haven't given any new updates is because nothing is changing. And so whenever things change, we will definitely give updates, whether it's service times, whether it's there's a time where we have to go back to online only. But as of right now, we're continuing to move forward with an RSVP system. And a few months ago, or a couple of months ago, whenever we were talking about this and looking forward to 2021, we decided that we were going to reevaluate all those things at the beginning of the year. And so here in the next few weeks, we'll kind of reevaluate any changes that we want to make with our Sunday morning services, and we'll be sure to update everybody at that time.
Yeah, this one may be more for Evan, but are there any plans to enhance our online videography, and do we need volunteers in that area? Yes is the answer.
Yeah.
So.
The one thing I can tell you is it's so funny. Evan is not going to be satisfied with how good our videography is, regardless of how good our videography is. And we definitely need people who can run camera. And I mean, we have a bunch of new technology that we are so thankful. And I mean, if we can give another couple of people a round of applause, David Schultes and Darren Bisk have been rock stars for us, but we just have this new technology, and those two have done such a great job of learning it and kind of keeping us going, but we need more people to learn it so they don't have to serve literally every single week.
Okay, this one, I might answer this one a little bit. So
Go for it.
I'm
Am I
come
done?
Up here. No, you're fine. I think so. I
done.
think so. But I'm just going to sit here and answer this one because I heard there's a camera over here too. This one was kind of about the budget, and someone had asked, in the budget we can see that there are online giving fees that were projected for $1,800, but in 2020 we actually spent $7,500, which is kind of just an important thing for people to be aware of. This year we had a big shift in our giving, where we had so many people giving in person last year that it almost flip-flopped, that a majority of people are giving online, and that does increase the fees. There is a pretty significant fee when you give with a credit card or a debit card. It's actually 2.6% of what you give plus a 39-cent just on top of that fee. And so if you're given $1,000, that would be $26, which can add up pretty quickly. So just be aware of that. There is another alternative to give if you give through your checking account. And if you give that way and just plug in your routing number, your checking number, if you feel comfortable doing that, that's a perfectly safe way to give. The fee is much less. I think it's 0.75%. And so that saves a great deal more amount of money. But then you can also, if you're here in person, just give with a check. There's no fee for that. So anyway, I think that's just important to know, especially as we encourage people to give online. I do have one more question. This one is for Trey, if he wants to come in. The question is, since we are back in service, we know that kids ministry has started back up. What can we expect about junior high and high school Sunday school classes?
That's a very good question. So we kind of just made the decision to cancel Sunday school until the start of the new year for a lot of just different reasons. A big one is the space that we currently have for our Sunday school service is kind of small. And so being able to socially distance, depending on numbers, is something that we're trying to navigate, just because when parents send their kids into that room, we want to make sure that it's as safe as possible. Also trying to figure out ways to just better engage our students as well. And so that's probably not an answer, but we're really looking forward to getting it back in just the best ways and the safest ways that we can do that. That's what we're going to do. So.
Cool. And the last question that we received was about retirement and health care and stuff like that for the staff. One of the things that the church does for the staff, which is so incredibly kind, I've never seen another church that has done this, is they give us what's called a Social Security offset. And I'm going to connect Mike with whoever it is that asked this question, and Mike, you can kind of explain to them in a little bit more detail. But it's just an extra little bit that, because of the way our salaries are done, that something happens, and there's that. So that explain it well? I nail it? So there's something that happens with something that leads to something else. But Mike will definitely, the person who asked that question, Mike will definitely get in touch with you and kind of answer that question for you. So, but I just thank you all so much for giving us, way too much time tonight. And to everybody online, if anybody's still there, God bless you. Just watched a feature-length film version of us talking. So you are a saint if you're still there. But I'm going to pray, and then we'll be dismissed. Father in heaven, I thank you again for this church. I thank you for, God, I could talk about the church, and I could talk about this church literally forever. And I am just so grateful for the people here. And God, I pray that you will use us. God, that you'll give us humility and fire and boldness and compassion and empathy and hearts to serve. And God, that you'll give us a heart that is moved by your Spirit and wisdom and, Jesus, just a passion to make a difference in this world. Help us to be people who love you, who love others, and who prove it daily. Jesus, we love you. In your name we pray. Amen. Love you guys. Thank you so much for being here tonight.